Hello and welcome to the Things We Know. I'm Kari Morin.
And I'm Lisa Callahan.
And today's episode is really exciting for us because we have the coolest guest here. And this amazing woman you're about to meet happens to be someone we didn't know before today, but we came across her article about the difference between giving a shit and having no fucks left from 3 years ago, I believe. And we ended up doing a whole episode about it. It inspired us a lot, actually, when we were creating the pod.
Yeah, for sure. And then Kari was smart enough to reach out and let Allison know we were mentioning her article and loving her ideas. And lo and behold, she agreed to be a guest. So welcome, Alison Gary. So nice.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, this is so exciting. So for a little background, since 2005, Allison's been writing a real life style advice for women over 35. As a 48-year-old woman who has grown with Wardrobe Oxygen, which is her blog, she wanted to offer helpful resources from a virtual friend who understands the difficulty, but also the awesomeness of being a grown-ass woman. I love that so much.
I think I also loved learning from you that 5 years ago, I think you said at age 43, that you up and quit your stable, well-paying corporate job to be a full-time blogger. I'm so impressed. And you've been able to have a lucrative career as a blogger without going to YouTube and TikTok or all that other stuff that a lot of people do. And you've had such success without selling out. And I love that. And that you're the sole breadwinner for your family and you live with your husband and 14-year-old daughter in Maryland.
Yes.
So tell us about that journey.
Well, I started blogging in 2005. So I am definitely a blogging OG. And I started it because I had a cubicle job. I was hired. I live in the DC suburbs. So all of us end up somehow working for the government. And I was hired for a government contract that we hadn't gotten yet, but we knew we were going to get. And so I was brought on to the company. I was on board and they just told me to look busy until we got the contract. And I had seen something on like a news show, like 60 Minutes or something about blogging. And I was like, oh, that's something I can do where I can look busy in my cubicle. I can like type in Microsoft Word about what I want to write, email to myself and publish it on a blog when I got home. And prior to working in corporate America, I had spent a year working in apparel, retail, merchandising, styling, and all that. And so I was like, well, I will write about fashion because I have a lot of opinions about it. And so back in 2005, it seemed like everybody had written a style book and we were getting style books from everybody. And I dreamed of writing my own style book, but who's going to buy a style book from, a woman sitting in a cubicle in suburban Maryland? So this became like my style book. And if you go back to my archives, it's like each post is like a chapter. And so that just ended up becoming something that I really enjoyed doing, and I stuck with it. And when the blogging boom happened around 2011 to 2014, I went along with that trajectory and things just kept growing and growing. And I started getting on some social media, but I haven't done all of it. And it just kept growing to the point where I was making more from the blog than I was from my work in my day job. And then there was restructuring at my company and I was fine, but a lot of people that are really respected and loved at my company were let go. And I was having a one-on-one with my supervisor and I was talking about how it was really upsetting. And she says, well, every job has a expiration date on it. And I was like, mine's today. And she's like, wait, what did you say? And I'm like, wait, what did I say? Because I had been thinking about it, like how I was so stressed, but I was like, I need the PTO, I need the benefits, I need the retirement, I need all the perks. And I just dropped it. And I said, I quit. And then told my husband. And he was like, no, I really support it because you've been a mess because it's just too much. And you love the blog, you just like your job. So I gave them a few weeks notice and December 1st, 2017, I was self-employed and I have been ever since. Wow. And my husband was already a stay-at-home dad. And as our daughter has gotten older, he hasn't had the need to go back to work. So Wardrobe Oxygen supports the Gary family.
Oh my God,
is.
I'm sorry, Kari and I are laughing because you are literally kind of explaining what is going on with Kari and I, because we, for another 24 hours, work together. And very similar situation to that, where some of us have been let go and some of us have not. And
And
so
some of us are feeling expiration dates like that too. It's always that, that clock ticking, and these kind of things really bring it up for you. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the
those
older we
moments of
get, the
shifting.
more you hear the ticking clock, and you're more aware of, I have overstayed my welcome in the past, and maybe now it's time for me to roll out of the party a little bit early before, I've overstayed my welcome.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I also love this because you may not know this. I don't know what you've seen about us, but Kari and I both are coaches, and in particular, business coaches. And where she works, I was working with student coaches to build their business. And they're so often they are concerned about, oh my God, I got to do social media. I got to do TikTok. I got to do Reels. And so I realize you started this all before that really, but you still haven't, it sounds like, really gone into that world per se. I know you're on social media. I follow you. I love watching all the posts you put up. So fun. We'll talk about the clothes in a few minutes. But I love that you kind of paved the way you wanted to pave it.
I am very lucky that I started a blog early and then I never gave up on it. Google likes old sites, like it gives you a lot of authority. So that has really helped me with search engine optimization and people Googling things that I write about and finding me instead of finding somewhere else. So that has really helped me. But also I really have, since the get-go, really focused. My audience isn't just a bunch of numbers, it's people.
Yeah.
A lot of them I've actually met, and like we email each other. I know who they are when they hit me in the DMs, and so creating that sense of community, I think, has really, really helped, because they have been there through all the life changes and through all the wardrobe oxygen changes. Like my blog wasn't even called Wardrobe Oxygen when it started. So I think that has been the real key for me to be able to be around for so long and have success.
I feel like I'm what you are, our future self. Cause I mean, that's exactly what, I was having a conversation just last night with a friend around the idea of, when I listen to she's saying, when I listen to the pod, I feel like I'm just listening. She's like, sure, I can listen to famous people talk about the same things you guys are talking about, right? Oprah and Drew Barrymore talking about menopause. Sure, I can go down that path. But when I listen to you and Kari, I feel like I'm listening to people I understand. And as I was talking to her about this, I thought, we need to keep that no matter what. We need to keep that sense of community and that sense of, we're just two broads talking about shit.
I think it's so even more important now in the world of AI, where you can have they'll crowdsource all the information and spit it out, something that may or may not be factual and may or may not be helpful, but having that personal connection is going to be more valuable than ever. And, I'm rooting you all on.
I have a couple questions that one that I wanted to ask and one that just came up for me. So the first one that just came up for me is just for people who are listening, because like Lisa said, all I could think of, that's the dream. That's what so many people, especially students where we work, but even our clients that are creating things or going out on their own, that's the dream, that you could actually, while you're at your safe job, start making more money doing the thing you love and have that way of leaving. For some people, it's burn the fucking boat and just go for it, go, you have to do it. And other people, it gets it's just too comfortable to leave and get something going. So for you to actually do it, that's the dream, right? That you could cushion it before you jump. And you did the work, and you're this new version of you was waiting there to catch you.
And I also didn't want to burn any bridges, because I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And so I was like, let me give myself a year, and I am going to be super nice to everybody I work with and keep in touch with everybody who had left the company and started working in other places, because in a year from now, I may be begging for a job. And, so I kept in contact, and I even did some contract work in my old field, just so I kept those ties and I kept my skill set fresh. And I did that for actually 2 years, 2 summers. I did contract work in my old job. And then I let it go. And then the pandemic happened. I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to be buying clothes. Like who's going to be reading a fashion blog when we're all locked inside? And I had no idea that it was actually going to send me even more traffic. But so I like freaked out and like filled out my resume again and sent it out to a bunch of people and did interviews. But by the time things started rolling, that's when everyone got used to lockdown, restrictions started, releasing. And then I saw that everybody's going to fashion blogs because they want to know about wireless bras and loungewear and athleisure and, all the things to be comfortable while at home, what to wear on Zoom, what to wear, working from home, that sort of thing. So I ended up pivoting because I was predominantly corporate wear. And so it kind of helped me kind of change with the times.
Oh, wow.
I love that.
So my other question that I was planning to ask you, which is so funny, because when I think about it, like we're an example of the impact of your work. You wrote a pretty poignant article during those times of lockdown about the difference between giving a shit and having less fucks, because you were speaking to the amount of people that were like, who cares? No one's going to see me. I'll just eat whatever. I'll just wear whatever. And I don't know if you heard, the episode that you inspired, but Lisa was talking about, like, she got up and got dressed every day. That helped her, that helped her mental health. With me, I loved being able to work in my pajamas, but it was so helpful to finally go back to my closet and remember that I'm a human with cute clothes too. So even though we're two different types you were speaking to, and we didn't know it yet, all these years later, it still has such an impact on us. So what I wanted to say is, what have you learned about the impact of your work besides inspiring a whole idea around a podcast and an episode?
Well, it's interesting because I am pretty much the average height and size of a woman in the United States. And I am so incredibly average that people come to my site because they're like, oh, she looks like me. Maybe I'm a size or two different, or a couple inches different, or a different age. But in general, I just look like an average woman in America. And we're not seen in the media. Like even when they think they're offering diversity, you have a plus size woman who's 6 feet tall and 22 years old, or you have somebody who's a perfect hourglass with the firm curves, that sort of thing. So it's been really cool because a lot of times I put myself in situations I find uncomfortable because I know it's going to help normalize things for other people. And so when I see the results of that, where people are like, oh my gosh, it is so great to see somebody like you in a bra, in a bathing suit, in a cocktail dress, showing her knees, showing her arms, it makes me feel as though I can do it too. And I'm like, all right, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm going to keep doing it, because we just need to normalize normal.
Amen. You are so our people, Allison. I love you so much already. I mean, seriously. Oh my God. Yeah, no, I mean, I laugh when first off, what the fuck is a plus size model? Like, it's just a fucking person. Like, that drives me nuts. Like, it's just human, right? And the idea of just identifying, I think it doesn't matter what size you are. I mean, I think of myself as plus size. I can imagine some people don't think of me that way, but I've always grown up curvy and all those things. And so to just be able to go, and so many of the clothes that I've seen on you, I think I even commented once, I'm like, I have that dress. Like, all your stuff is so amazing. And what I love about it is that it is, it's normalizing, but it's also gorgeous, and it's colorful, and it's not black, and it's not boxy. I mean, you're showing that a woman can dress for her body and look absolutely stunning and gorgeous and happy.
Thank you.
And honestly, we had one of our episodes that seemed to have a lot of impact, more so than we expected, was just making your body your bestie. And this idea that we are just done. We get to a certain age where we're just done thinking about like our bodies and want to get to a place where we're loving life and accessing joy. And I love the idea when you're like, I'm average, and I'm enjoying life. And here's a vibrant woman at the pool. And I think like we don't have enough of that. And so thank you. Thank you for that.
I have to say that having a blog is what has helped me have this confidence. Like you get like the haters and the trolls and all that, but being able to find that community that's like, yes, please keep this. This is great. I love this. It just inspires you to keep doing it. And I'm like, if more people would do it, that would make the world even better, because we just need to see the true diversity that's out there in the world.
And I do think we're at a point where that's kind of, I feel like, maybe I'm in a bubble, but I feel like we're at this turning point right now of this as well, right? Where I don't know if it was the pandemic, I don't know if it was politics, but women really are just fucking done, right? And in this great empowering way. And so it's just, whether it's listening to us or watching you, there's just so many opportunities for women to realize that their average is beautiful. That's exactly the right thing. And your blog, absolutely. And your social media just promote that. So I heard you say you started with corporate wear, which made sense because you were in corporate, and now you're doing, I think, like everything, a little bit of all of it, right? So how did before you started the blog, you said you were in the fashion industry or retail and whatever, but how did it develop over time? Like from being a little girl?
Well, like way back?
Yeah.
Because, my mom always loved fashion and she was always into it. I mean, we had Color Me Beautiful, and that was like our Bible. And we were always like playing with what were our colors and what would be flattering. And, like my mom was always really accepting of me, like cutting my hair, coloring it, wearing weird clothes, doing whatever I wanted to express myself through my appearance. And she was always like super supportive of that. And I always had a passion for fashion. And I ended up after college going and working retail. And then I really loved that and got into
your degree
visual
is not in
merchandising.
Fashion.
English lit.
Okay.
So,
awesome.
Love this. Love this.
Do any of us use our degrees for what
No.
we really went to school for? Especially when you go to school back then, it's like you didn't even use a computer, like
Poli-sci. Totally.
That's what you are, poli-sci?
Undergrad was poli-sci, grad school was education. So yeah, here I am coaching. Yes.
It all kind of connects though. Like I always think like English lit, I learned how to write better, you know, and then so I kind of use it in some way.
Sure.
I had a concentration in women's lit. So,
hey, it does. It does. Everything always does.
I think it does all intersect. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you go into retail out of college.
And then I really loved retail, and I really loved training, and I really loved styling, and I really loved merchandising, and I really hated the hours. And I got engaged to be married, and it started making me think like, he was working nights. I was working retail. We were like two ships passing in the night. Like we could go weeks without even seeing each other. And I was like, I really want to settle down and, possibly in the future have a family. So I started looking for corporate jobs, which was harder than you would think because my best friend had to create my resume for me because I really didn't understand Microsoft Word enough, because back then you just didn't use them.
Yeah.
Like I had like a computer at my store that was like, had the green screen and like all it did was what it needed to do.
Right.
So, and it's funny because then I got into, once I got the job and then I started planning my wedding, I started Googling a lot of things to learn things, started learning HTML because I was trying to create my wedding bio on the Knot. And through that helped. Then I ended up getting a job, learning a lot at the job and working my way up. And I ended up working in e-learning. And then when my friend who created the resume for me had to get a new job, I made her resume. So because I had learned so much just from teaching myself. And so, just over time, I just, I loved fashion. I wrote about it. I started off having a very definite voice, like never wear this, always choose this. If you look like this, you have to do this, and over time, I realized that how limiting that is and how like naive it is to think about fashion in that manner. And my audience would speak up and say, I love this. However, as a person who is experiencing this or lives in this kind of body or lives in this kind of environment, it just doesn't translate for me. And it just really has always helped me go, there's so much more I need to know. There's so much more outside of my bubble. And so I've just, over time, my advice I've tried to make it more and more inclusive and more of a resource to a greater percentage of people.
I love that. You're making it more accessible to
Mm-hmm.
to feel like they get to create their own sense of style. I reading Lisa's face. We do this a lot. What I love about what you're saying is you're essentially a coach who's really helping people with the self-esteem piece of their life, right? Like, because we always say you're not human doings, you're human beings. And self-esteem comes from, I'm worthy and I'm lovely just because I exist, not because I dress a certain way, right? And yet I feel like what you're inviting them to do is, express themselves, and that's going to help, right? So, know that, and again, this might get into, which we'll get to, like, give a shit a little bit about how you look if it makes you feel good, because that's going to radiate out. And that's what I love about what you're saying, is this accessibility and invitation to not be frumpy, because that could make you feel bad.
Yeah, fashion it can be overwhelming, it can be frustrating, it can be inaccessible, but it also can be a tool to help you find yourself and express yourself. And that doesn't mean you're wearing like the latest fashion or something that is tailored perfectly to your frame or whatever. It's just, like, I love blue, so I wear blue, like, just, it can be as simple as that you can use it as a tool to express yourself, but also impress yourself.
I love that. This is also not, this question just came up to me because you were talking about who you were at the beginning. And it's a question we ask a lot as coaches. If you could go back to that Allison and tell her something, what would you tell her? The one that started this, who was so definitive and things had to be this way. And you were kind of, what would you tell her?
I think it was really good to learn it from other folks versus, like, I have had some reality checks and some like face slaps in this job over the years where, people have checked me, and I really appreciate it, because you can sit on your high horse and think that you're so smart and that you're so knowledgeable and you know so much. And, if I can do it, you can do it too,
Right.
and then getting that slap and have somebody saying, yeah, you have no idea. Like, you're living in such a small, bubble. I really enjoy it. But if I could go back to, let's say, 2005 Allison, who started the blog, I would tell her to look more at other websites and how they're designed, because I did a lot with, like, how were they making money? How did they, how did they take their photos? But if I could do a design, I think it would have helped me, because I had a very minimal view of how the site would be used. Like, I had didn't think about, like, oh, people are going to read it on their phones, or people who have low visibility, will be reading my site, or people will be reading it with a screen reader or something like that. And it took me so much work. And I'm still to this day working to try to make my site function, because if you have like almost 7,000 articles on the website, like, there's a lot of mess. So, but I think it was a really good journey, because I started it off as a hobby and everything just kind of happened organically. Like, I really didn't have a strategy where I'm going to make this much money, I'm going to quit my job at this point. It was just kind of like something I did, and it just kind of flowed. And I think that's why it has survived.
Yeah.
I am so moved by this for so many reasons. Again, because, like, Lisa and I are always trying to help people come from a really genuine place of, like, why do you do this? Why is this important to you? Because that is what's going to translate and create success. And not that it's not going to be without bumps and tests and challenges, but this is such a beautiful story of why the internet can be so great, right? Because there's so many reasons we can all agree as mothers why it's terrible, but also you're doing, like, this is what we want out there. We want genuine people connecting to genuine people being vulnerable, making mistakes, being honest about it, but also sharing what they're passionate about and inspiring other people and making them feel less alone. And that's like the coolest part of this story. It's such a like, it's so, it warms my heart that you've had that experience, because we're always trying to help people believe that like, if you come from a really genuine place and you don't give up, it's gonna go somewhere, right? It's gonna be successful in some way.
Yeah, I definitely, I see peers who have just skyrocketed to fame, and it's very hard, like you look at them and you get a little like, "Oh, I could have done that too," or if I do X, Y, and Z, I could probably get there. And I'm like, stop, Allison, that's not what you want to do. Like, that's them. They are awesome. They are killing it. That's fantastic. Do you really, really want that? Or do you just feel like you're supposed to have that? So it's a constant cycle to be like, why are you doing this? Get back to the basics.
And that's so important because, again, we talk to our clients all the time around the idea of compare and despair. And that's a beautiful question to ask yourself. Sure, these people are doing A, B, and C. Am I willing to do those same things? And if the answer is no, then it's apples and oranges. You can't compare and despair because you're not willing to do those same things. And so be it. Who cares? That's your own. And I think that's where what's really striking me about this conversation with you is just, who you are. And that's why you're successful, because you know who you are. And so you're not compromising anything. And that is just so magnetic. Right. Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I also just really want to highlight what you just said, because that hit me in a deep place of just so many of the people that I talk to, and Lisa too, and probably you, which is this really what I want? Also, do I want that, or is it what I'm supposed to want? Because I think that is just so common for women in these times, and probably always, to really get yourself, I don't want to say caught up. That is the case with some people, but really just you get yourself on a trajectory that tells you you're supposed to want those things. And it takes you away from your intuition and like your deep inner wisdom telling you who you are and what you really want. And so that I don't want to gloss over how incredibly impressive that is, that something allowed you to slow down and go, is this what I want? Because I'm me, and everyone else has their own thing. And so many people are pursuing things they might not really even want.
I mean, I asked myself that weekly. Like, it's not like I'm sitting here going, oh, I have it all figured out. No. Every time I open up Instagram, I'm like, no, that's not what you want.
I think like that, like with adult children, I say that a lot. You may not be happy to hear that adulthood is a constant check-in with yourself. Like, is this still what I want?
Yeah.
Well, since you brought up children, I mean, again, since I'm watching you on social media, like your daughter and your husband are in a lot of these pictures. It's so cute. So how has that impacted raising a girl? I mean, I have a daughter, Kari, and a son. She has 3 sons. But for me, especially when we decided to move to LA, that was one of my biggest things I was worried about moving out here, right? My daughter was born in Chicago, and then we moved here 6 years ago. I was so worried about like what LA was going to do in terms of her self-esteem. Turns out I was completely full of shit. But raising a daughter is tough with all the things. So how has it impacted her with you and having this blog?
Well, it's really been good for me and her because it forces me to really think about what language I use about myself, because I don't want to use certain language about myself in front of her. And therefore I'm like, if I don't want to use it in front of her, I don't want to use it on myself. And I sure as hell don't want to have it on my website, because we don't need any of that. So I think it's been really good in that way. I like it because I'm far more tech savvy and social media savvy than a lot of my friends. And therefore I know what platforms she might want to be on that they don't even know exist, know, and I know what she could be doing on her phone that they might not even realize is on their phone. So I think that's been really good. Also, she's just a really awesome human being who, I mean, she has her typical 14-year-old self-doubts and everything like that, but she's been holding her own as to who she is and hanging with people that see her for her. And I'm really grateful for it right now, but I think we have a pretty open form of communication between us, and with my husband too. Like, so.
Well, it's both Kari and I being moms, and again, me being a mom of a daughter as well. My daughter's 17. I do think that is because of how you've shown up in the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I also think my daughter's really holding her own, all things considered. And I do own that I'm the mom that I am. And I think that's impacted her. She's a fantastic human being in her own right. But I think because you've parented and just shown up in the world authentically, you've allowed her to do the same thing. So bravo.
I just said that to Lisa last weekend when I was there. So I want to talk about the article, the one that brought us to you, because it's great. It's so funny. Thank you. I mean, honestly, when we were, creating topic ideas, and I was doing a lot of, one of the titles of the that we played with for this podcast was Zero Fucks Left, right? So in sort of playing with it, and I hate to use the word research because it got overworked, but I did a lot of kind of Googling and playing around, and your stuff stood out. I loved it. It caused me to want to look at the rest of your stuff. So I just want to hear about that. Like, what prompted you to write it? Like what informed it? And, I just want to hear a little bit about that, because you're a great writer. For people who, haven't found you yet, go check her out. You're so funny and so real. You hit so many points in there that made us just both go, oh, this is exactly right.
I think it's because we get to this age, and I see, especially during the pandemic, where a lot of us were just like, why am I even worrying about this? Why am I even worrying about that? That it was like a slippery slope to be like, why do I care? And there's a difference between caring what other people think and caring about yourself. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to decide, like, what's the difference between the two of like not caring what other people think and just not caring at all. And I was like, not giving a shit is just giving up. Having no fucks to give is an action, like you are making a decision. I have decided I don't care about this thing anymore. This doesn't benefit me in any way. So I'm just no fucks for that. But I don't give a shit. It's more kind of, I don't know. I was just ready to say, like, fuck is way better than shit. But
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But yeah, it's just like kind of throwing everything into the pile where you're just like, I don't care about anything at all. Like, I'm not going to get dressed today because it doesn't matter.
I mean, the energetics of it is very clear, right? When you say, I don't give a shit, like, it does feel heavy. Whereas like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, there is a definite energetic difference in the two, which I think I intuitively knew, but you put words to it so perfectly. I mean, Kari, you sent that to me way before we started this podcast. Like, I don't know, I don't remember, but it was like last year. And it just kind of stuck in our brain pan, And so when we had an opportunity to do an episode, and oh my God, the feedback we've gotten. So what kind of feedback other than us have you gotten from this?
I really positive feedback, because I think it does clarify the difference between the two, that you can release some of the things that you felt as though you had to do without giving up on yourself. And it's making me think about a post I wrote one time when I quit my job about quitting versus giving up. And it's the same thing. It's action versus passive. And like, not giving a shit is really passive. It's just letting it go, versus having no fucks is a very actionable, specific decision that you're making.
God, I love that. The part that when you said it's about that other 4-letter word, care, and listening to what Lisa just said, I was thinking that it is heavy to go, I don't care, versus like, I don't give a care. Like it is not, I am not sweating it. It is so powerful that it's really about what you care about, and all the energy that goes out to, caring about what other people think or caring about how it looks takes away so much from the present. And that was the takeaway. As funny as it was, as much as we loved it, and you sounded like someone we wanted to hang out with, it was emotional to realize it's about what we care about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the older we get, the more we realize there isn't a lot of time and energy. And so we have to be very, careful with our time and our energy. And we need to take care of ourselves so that we can get through what life brings our way. And when we stop caring about ourselves and spending too much time caring on other people, that's when it's like, next thing you know, 10 years have gone by, or, you've missed out on so much because you're losing that connection to yourself.
That leads me to another thought around this. And you've said something twice now that's made me think of this. I think we both, or the three of us, think we have the same audience of women of a certain age. And yet for us, and so this is my question to you, if you have found this as well, I think I know the answer. What we have been most surprised about is our audience. We thought it was going to be 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond. And yet we are having a lot of 30-year-olds and even some late 20s come to us and be like, thank you. Because again, society, media would tell you that we just disappear into thin air, or as my son's girlfriend says, dissolve into ash. She's 21 and she's like, oh my God, to hear you guys talk about things just keep getting better, when as a 21-year-old, I'm being told at 30, you're ancient. And so we've gotten this feedback from younger women that are so grateful to hear, and I think are learning and trying to adopt some of the things we're talking about in our mid 50s earlier, right? So this idea of time slips away. If we can get a few 30-year-olds to grab onto time at 30 instead of 45, 48, 50. So are you finding that too, even though you're, talking to women of a certain age, are younger women coming to you being like, oh, thank God, thank God, thank God?
Well, it's interesting because it's like once I hit 40, I was like, oh, now I can be considered an over 40 blogger, because I was in this pool of
that's interesting,
women in their young 30s and late 20s. And I was like, I can't relate at 39. I have a kid, they're still single in their bachelorette apartment, like at their entry level job. And I just can't relate to them. And so I was thrilled to be 40, because then I was like, this means I can be in this category of bloggers. But then once I got there, I realized that is too limiting. Plus it's too generalizing. And I think it's really cool, like right now, how we're so focusing on different generations, and like how millennials are different from Gen X, are different from boomers, that kind of thing, because we all have different life phases, but I started saying I was an over 40 blogger. Then I started saying I focus on fashion for women over 35, because I saw from my analytics that my audience was a little bit younger. The longer I've been at it, the younger my audience has gotten.
Oh, interesting.
And then I noticed, especially on social media, like Instagram, my audience is way younger than the audience is on my blog. And then on Facebook, my audience skews a little bit older. So It's like three different communities. So I'm like, let's just call us all grown-ass women, because it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 70, we're all in that same mindset. So
I call myself a grown-ass woman all the time. So I love that.
I love it too. I'm curious really quick what you would say, because I'm guessing even though people are following you for style and fashion and permission to, really love whatever style they feel comfortable in, which is one of my favorite things about you, is also people are probably really inspired that you just stick with this. So what would be your advice to people who aren't positive, they want to blog, but they're not sure how to do it, or if they're a good writer, or what's your advice to women about blogging?
I think that we got to a point in blogging started as online journals, where we just wrote whatever we thought. We didn't worry about formatting. We didn't worry even about photos. It was just a journal entry. And then things got a little bit too intimate for the size of the audiences. And we saw a lot of problems, especially with what happened with parenting bloggers, and things like that. And so, I even had a baby blog at one point. And once she got to potty training. I was like, I need to stop this. It's too much. But I think we got way too formalized trying to blogs compete with like Refinery 29 and Who, What, Where, and all these like mega sites. And we were trying to be on the same page. But I think, again, I'm bringing back AI, but like in the new post-pan world, I think just being yourself and not worrying about all the formatting, the SEO, the this, the that, and just being yourself and sharing it from your perspective instead of trying to be some, expert or sounding too professional. Just kind of go back to basics. And that's when people are going to be like, okay, I can emotionally connect with this person. Therefore, I want to know more. I want to read more. I want to follow.
Amen.
Dang, it's so good. This is such gold. Thank you.
So should we move into the song?
Yeah.
All right. So we loved your song and we want you to quote it, but tell us a little bit about it. What did you love about it?
Why'd you song?
Your Champion
by Bishop Briggs.
Oh yes, I forgot.
Sorry. Yeah, you probably put that down a long time ago.
One thing I also did, and I've been thinking about getting back into, is that when I quit my job, that next month, a gym slid into my DMs. It was like, we'll offer you free personal training for 3 months in exchange for you sharing it on just organically, however you want to, just share it on social media. And I'd occasionally go to the gym and be on the elliptical, but I really didn't do anything consistently. And so I was like, okay, like, sure. And I ended up going to that gym 5 days a week straight until lockdown happened. So yeah, like from December 2017 till March 2020, I went to the gym and I was weightlifting. And it really got me realizing the power of music, that some songs can really get you and some songs will drive you bonkers. Yep. And the song Champion from Bishop Briggs was like my hype song. Like the days that I was like, I don't want to go to the gym. Like I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I had a couple drinks the night before, like I got in a fight with my husband. I didn't, have time to whatever. And I would put that song in the car and it would just hype me up to get me going, because it's a very powerful song from a woman who is a very powerful woman. So yeah.
Just like you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Do you have the lyrics in front of you? Because if not, I will read.
I do not. Okay, I do not.
We should have told you we were going to ask you to quote, but luckily Kari gave them to me. So I will quote them. I'm not that familiar with the song, so I'm probably not going to do it quite in the way that it goes, but I'll read them regardless. So again, this song is called Champion by Bishop Briggs. And it says, nobody said it'd be an easy ride, obstacles in my way, scars never change. Why do I crumble quickly, stumble swiftly, cursing the world? I burn the songs I wrote 1 billion times in my head. I'm feeling low, got nowhere to go, but back up again. You got to get bruised before you get mad. You got to fall down before you fight back. Was feeling so weak, but baby, I'm strong. Little did I know I'm a champion. I got chills reading that. I'm a champion. Oh, I can't wait to add it. We have a playlist, and so we add the songs that we say every week. So I can't wait to add this. And
it's a good song.
Oh, it sounds
amazing. Great song. I love it. I love this. I love when people add to our playlist, and this sounds like a really good one we can all use.
Yeah, no kidding.
Allison, this has been so great to spend this time with you. I feel so honored and lucky, and I'm learning so much. And so thank you. I love the impact and the invitation you're providing for women of all ages, all grown-ass women out there, just to embrace their own style and to be themselves. What I say all the time to people is, you're here to be more you. You're not here to be more anyone else. And you embody that. And I love this. And I just think people are so lucky to know about you and know you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure chatting with both of you. I love it. And I just love everything you're doing. So thank you.
Ditto. And would you share a little bit with our listeners, like how to follow you and like where to find you, where you want them to find you?
Yes.
Yes. Sure. Wardrobe Oxygen. It's wardrobeoxygen.com. On Instagram, I'm wardrobe_oxygen. And I'm Wardrobe Oxygen on Facebook. And yeah, and then if you go to wardrobeoxygen.com, at the top, you have links to all my different platforms that I'm on.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Oh, it has been such a pleasure. I feel like, I mean, we've done several interviews, but you're the first person we haven't actually known. So it feels like you're our first celebrity.
It does.
I'm
It does.
honored. I'm honored.
I just want, yeah, I just want to second what Kari said. Everything you're doing is just fantastic. And I think it's also, I want to say it's like for pre-grown ass women to learn that when you become a grown ass woman, you get to be even better and you get to step into it even more. You are definitely our people. And it's just been an absolute pleasure to spend this last 50 minutes with you for sure. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Thank you both.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. If you're enjoying listening to The Things We Know, we are so glad you're here. Please consider following The Things We Know podcast by clicking on the plus sign or the follow button wherever you listen to podcasts.
And also, if you love today's episode, we encourage you to forward it to anyone else you think will enjoy listening, because I'm sure we all have friends who would love to connect to Allison and this permission to embrace personal style. So please consider sharing it with them.
And that's it for this week. We'll see you back here next week.
Bye.